Welcome to Gaia's Love, a podcast of brief messages to help humanity bridge the gap to the new earth. My name is Vivienne Gerard. It is my delight to be a scribe for consciousness today, sharing the wisdom that flows through from Source. Here we go. Episode 30. 30. Isn't that exciting? Already at episode 30. The time goes by so quickly. Today's podcast is about elevating. I love the way that the themes or topics present themselves to me. So today I was blessed with an incredibly spacious morning, and I had a virtual acupuncture session, and then I went to a Kundalini yoga class with my daughter. And of course there's always a match in energy, like attracts like. And when I was in the acupuncture session, the feeling was all about expansion and integrating as we expand. So when I went into the yoga class, the Kriya that our instructor selected for today was called elevation. Elevation or elevating. But it was about tuning up your energy, moving energy through your body like you would get an oil change. You get a tune-up in your body with energy. And it was beautiful and exactly what I needed. And so when I came home, I was already behind schedule, and I thought, well, I don't know what the topic is going to be about, but there's a theme here of expanding, so it's something to do with that. And in my meditation, I had this image of Sault Ste. Marie, the locks that are there. If you want to see a picture, I would suggest Googling it and looking in Wikipedia. You can get all of the scientific and, basic data on what it is. I'm tuning into the energetic of it. When I was about 14 or 15, we had always taken vacations to the ocean. That was usually what our family did. Vacation, beach. That's what the two meant. And when we were here in the States, we decided to try Michigan and try a lake vacation. It was beautiful. Michigan is beautiful. And one of the sightseeing adventures that my parents wanted to make sure we got included in this time away as a family was a trip to the locks. And at the time when you're a teenager, it's so not cool. Nothing's cool when you're a teenager. But I do remember being so impressed with what I was witnessing. And that image came to mind today when I was tuning into this idea of expansion and elevation and integrating. How do we do that? When we are waking up, when we're expanding into being more loving and less fear-based in human experiences, when we are feeling the truth of consciousness always is expanding and becoming more. How do we move through those transitions? How do we stay alive and functioning in the human body and expand spiritually, consciously, energetically? It seems so contradictory. The two don't always go together. And that's why it's so exciting for me when a visual or an image comes through that describes it so accurately. It's like, oh, I can picture that happening and match that idea to what I'm experiencing and put an image to something that doesn't always have words or form. So that's what I feel for this image of the locks. So when we are expanding, when we are waking up and our old ideas are very familiar, but they don't quite align with what we feel is possible. So, for example, What would a good example be? We're in a job that we know is familiar and comfortable, but we also know we're not bringing through the true gifts that our soul wants us to deliver. So maybe we're working in a restaurant, or we're working in a job where we're dealing with the public a lot. And what we know our work is supposed to be is perhaps writing or coaching or meditation or yoga. I'm using very simple examples. How do we transition from the one way of being into the other way of being? How do we get back and forth between those two experiences? It can feel really uncomfortable or harsh to move back and forth. And also that's what's being called of us. As this planet heals, as humanity expands, we are being nudged more and more out of our comfort zones to get true to who we are, to become in alignment with the greater versions of who we are. The energies moving on our planet right now are pushing us all towards that, whether we understand what's happening or not. We just know things are uncomfortable and different and shifting. And so how do we gracefully move through that transition? The image of the locks, this is what's so powerful when you can align an image to something like this. The way that it's set up, the lower lakes that are, I believe, Michigan side, the United States side, are 21 feet lower than the Lake Superior, which I believe leads into Canada. Again, I should have looked up my geography and facts, but I'm close enough that you'll be able to get an idea. So a ship that wants to go from one lake to the other lake is somehow either going to have to rise 21 feet to get onto the higher lake, or go down 21 feet without capsizing to get to the lower lake. So there's this discrepancy of distance, height, and how do we transition between the two? The genius idea of a lock is that the ship will come in from whichever lake it's in into this area that is, it looks like a pen, like a dog pen or a play pen. You come into this area that's all barricaded, and it has a gate that controls how much water can come and go. And the ship is just the right size. It comes in. I think the one video I looked at quickly before this, just to make sure I had my facts somewhat close, it was 70 feet wide and like 600 feet long. So these huge ships can come into this little pen. The gate closes behind it, and either water is let out so that the ship can lower from the higher lake to the lower lake, or water is pumped in and it comes underneath the ship and it raises the ship up higher from the lower lake to get up to the higher lake. Whichever direction it's going, once it's leveled out, 21 feet difference, the gate opens and the ship goes off where it needs to go. It's seriously miraculous, like such a genius idea. But when I was meditating, that's the image I kept seeing. When we are elevating consciousness, we are transitioning from one way that is very familiar and comfortable, perhaps lower vibration, to another level which is unfamiliar, totally new vistas and adventures awaiting us. And also, we literally have to raise ourselves 21 feet, which, by the way, I love the number 21. It's a magical number. So we have to raise our vibration from one to the other, and it's a significant difference. How do we do that? How do we do that? And how long does it take to do that? That process of elevating is unique for every individual. Just like for a ship, there's a process where they're going to bring the ship into the lock, and they expect it might take this amount of time to pump this amount of water to get this amount of distance. But what if the pumps aren't working right? Or what if the ship has more cargo weight than others and it takes longer? Or what if it pours rain? Or there's so many variables that can impact how long it's going to take. It's the same for us as we are awakening and expanding. How long is it going to take for us to move from one level to another, from one awareness to another, from one way of being, one job, one experience to another? It's completely up to the individual. But if you have this visual of we're just ships pulling into these little docks, waiting, pumping, shifting, expanding, having our experience, and then suddenly we've raised our consciousness, our vibration to whatever the next adventure is going to be, the gates are going to open and off we go. Off we go into whatever the experience is next. So perhaps the question to focus on isn't how long is it going to take, or what is the process going to be? What are the steps I'm going to have to go through? What are the discomforts or feelings? What is it all going to be? Instead of the unknown distracting us or putting us into a mind loop of, I need to know, I need to understand, I need to know what the future looks like, I need to know what my relationships will be, I need to know what my job is going to be, I have to have control over all of this. Instead of that, what if we focus on how do I enjoy this time of elevating? So imagine you're either on the ship. I can't remember. It's so funny. I can't remember if we were on the ship or watching from the outside. I just remember seeing all the mechanisms of it and going, whoa. But I don't remember my perspective, which is funny. But you can put yourself on the ship or off to the side observing the whole thing. What if you focus on how you're enjoying the experience? That ship, every ship that pulls into a lock, knows at some point it's going to get out of the lock and it has to go one direction, which is forward. The water is going to lift it or lower it and take it where it's supposed to go. So why not enjoy what's unfolding as you're in the process of it? Doesn't that feel better? If you imagine the person on the ship, so let's say it's a ferry and there's cars on the ship and all these people are in the cars. Some of them can be sitting in the cars while the water is lifting the ship up to the higher vibration. And they could be crying and worrying that the ship might have an accident or the water might run out or someone might have some crazy outbreak of some explosion. Who knows, right? They can get all wonky about what could go wrong. And they spend the whole time in this isolated, fearful experience. Or you could just stand up, get out of the car, walk to the edge, hold on so you're safe, and just marvel at what is unfolding. Watch it and enjoy it and witness and talk to the person next to you about how incredible this whole unfolding is. Be in the moment of it, knowing at some point that ship's going to go forward. The water will rise and you'll be at that next elevation. So just surrender. Trust. You're moving forward. You're moving forward because you're on the ship and the ship's in the lock and it's going to open the gates when it's ready and off you go. So, yeah, enjoy the process of elevating. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be solved. It doesn't need a plan. You surrender to the process of it and trust. It's all guided. It's all guided. Feels good. Feels so much better from that perspective. Thank you for tuning in to today's vibration. Let's take this message of pure love out into all of our communities and continue expanding love here on Gaia. So much love from my heart to yours.